But jumping into like some of the logistics, you said you'll have 6 projects going on right now. You have a summer
Mhm.
cohort. So tell us more about you're always looking for students, I'm guessing, to get recruited in. So what does that process look like? How long does a student work with you all? What does that
Mhm.
all look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, with regards to recruiting students, we started, it's a very, very new organization. We started this back in April. So, it's been a couple months. And we're very, very honored to have created a big network within these few months. So, I would say the biggest challenge that I've experienced thus far with creating this organization was having to select students and say no to some students because we genuinely, right as of right now, we're still building up the organization. We don't have enough resources or enough capacity to support every single student in doing being a part of a team and doing a project. So when we sent out applications, we got way more applications than we could select, unfortunately, and it was such a sad feeling. And as someone who has applied to many things and gotten rejected from many things, it was very interesting being on the other side and seeing like genuinely this is just so it's just so sad that we could not accept as many students as we could. But yeah, that we had our first cohort this summer, and we're planning on doing recruitment in the fall, in the spring, and then next summer as well, and ongoing into the future for as long as possible. And so students, when they apply, we just ask them to talk about, what are some health disparities that particularly interest you or particularly speak to you, and then we ask them to submit their resume, writing sample, very standard protocol, things like that, and then a couple essays just about like working in a team or leadership. And then we read through every application. We try to interview as many students as possible to get a feel of what they're interested in. And then when we're designing the projects, we try to incorporate the cohort's interests as much as possible. So this cohort, for example, we had many students interested in climate change, and that's not very surprising given that climate change will disproportionately affect younger generations like our generation. So we made sure that we had a project specifically tailored towards climate change and ways that we can address climate change, especially for marginalized communities like undocumented immigrants. We also have students from different schools, different states as well. We tried to pub to different schools because we did start as a club or kind of as a group of Harvard students. We tried to also reach out to different students within our school and then to friends who attend other schools. But unfortunately, our reach wasn't too broad back then. And in the future, we definitely want to increase our reach and our advertising to as many schools as possible. And then with regards to mentors, I looked into people in neighboring hospitals who were very experienced in conducting all types of health disparities research. And I honestly just contacted people who I thought would be a good fit for a program. And I was also very surprised that mentors were typically very willing to join, even in the very initial stages of the organization. And that was very, very encouraging for me and definitely a big, big support for growing our organization. And with regards to policy advisors, we also have a dedicated policy team who helps research fellows curate their policy recommendations, as well as finding legislation, for example, that they can talk about and promote in their meetings with policy advisors, and also reaching out to different people who we think would be a good fit for the advising the policy component of our program. So that's kind of how we recruit students, and we were also trying to increase the number of people on our board so that we can accommodate more teams and accommodate more students and ultimately more researchers and provide more students with this opportunity to experience both the research and the policy side of advocacy.
So I'd imagine that with the growing interest as you'll continue to do work, you're going to get a lot of students applying. What are some of the
Mhm.
things that kind of stand out to you all when you're
Mm.
looking at student applications?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that we want to see within students is passion. Many of our students who we ended up accepting, they had a very deeply personal connection to a particular health disparity and were very obviously driven to help to combat that disparity. For example, some students, like I mentioned, they are interested in disparities in a particular disease because perhaps they've seen a loved one suffer from this disease, or students from a particular minority community who have firsthand seen members of their minority community suffer from these health disparities. We also try to interview every single applicant so that we can hear directly from them why they want to join and what inspires them about combating health disparities. So I think above all, we want to see passion. Other things we typically like to see in students is definitely a good skill set in writing, since a lot of the research component is trying to sell, kind of trying to figure out exactly how to kind of present the problem in a way that is understandable to as many people as possible. So we do ask for a writing sample, and we want students to be able to work together and work collaboratively to produce this final well-written deliverable. Also, students who are able to commit the time and energy needed for the fellowship, it does end up being a bit of a time commitment for students, especially since we're operating on a relatively short time scale of one summer, especially for the summer cohort. So we do make sure that we recruit students who are dedicated and able to commit the 8 to 10 hours that we expect of them, and also continue on with policy and do basically the entire fellowship from start to finish, since it does tend to be a little bit challenging for students who may have 15 other commitments lined up at once. So yeah, honestly, we are super open to any student background, any interest, anything like that. We just want to see mostly just passion and commitment. And we believe that things like a strong writing, those can be trained so that you don't have to come in being like the best writer ever, the best researcher ever. We do try to provide you with all the resources that you need to succeed in our fellowship. So we also do really like a very diverse class of research fellows. We believe that, within diversity, you can hear very new perspectives that you otherwise wouldn't have heard. And we very much like to think of our fellowship as a very tight-knit community where we do get to hear about what people's interests are and jump ideas off of each other to promote our own research.
Oh, well, thank you for sharing that. And just for clarification, so students at what level are able to apply and be part of the cohorts?
Yeah, so as of right now, most of our students are undergrads, but we do have some students who are in master's programs or graduate programs or are attending medical school or about to attend medical school. So we definitely don't restrict. We've also had some students apply in high school. So anyone of any age, we just want to see, like I said, the passion, the commitment, the dedication to health disparities research, and also being able to commit the time. So yeah, we also welcome students from any geographic area. We have students from across the world actually. So yeah, anyone who's interested, we'd love to support them as well. And again, we're also growing our network and growing our number of initiatives that we'd like to get started. So the next initiative, we'd also like to support students with potentially independent research if that's something that they're interested in, as well as promoting them to higher levels within the organization. So you start off as a research fellow, you can get promoted to being a project lead, and then a project lead, you can be promoted to a board member. And this way, students get the entire experience of being within this organization.